Good morning. This is Kathy Sparrow. I'm co-author of Ignite Your Leadership, and I'm here this morning for our Ignite Your Leadership Within Summit with Gip Erskine, the founder of EverSmarts, the platform which combines personal development with property management. Good morning, Gip.
How are you? Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
I'm doing well. So tell me a little bit about your company, and then we'll get into the questions about leadership for property managers.
Sure. Well, I founded the company in 2013 after going through an immersion with Jack Canfield during the trainer program that we were neat enough to meet up with, and that really became the genesis of something where I was able to glean all of my years of self-improvement and personal development and bring that to the property management industry that I've been a member of a part of since 1984. So EverSmarts is actually founded on a principle that uses an everlasting, perpetual type of never-ending growth, along with the acronym SMARTS, which doesn't stand for like SMART goals, specific and measurable and all those, but it actually stands for service, mastery, authenticity, respect, and trust. And so it's a package of values that I hold near and dear to my own philosophy and how I serve my team, my customers every single day. So that's what started it, and it's quite exciting.
That's cool. So tell me about your leadership journey. When did you finally, own that leadership role?
Own is interesting because I think I rented for a while first.
I like that.
In real estate, I was thrown into real estate. When I say thrown in, I met my boss at a Christmas party. I was a bartender at the time, and the friend that was hosting the party said, "Hey, my boss will be here. Why don't you meet him? And you may want to talk about a possible career in property management." I'm like, property management? Okay. So we did, and the conversation went great. And he's like, well, let's talk in an interview next week. And so I showed up, and he said, do you have any questions? That was it. I'm like, all right, what do I do? And so I was put in a position of a regional manager, managing multiple apartment complexes that had a lot more experienced people than me. And so I was really thrown into supervising them and not having any idea what I was doing. And so talk about having to be a quick learner. When issues came up, my response was, there's a Gip, we've got this particular issue. What do we do? And I'd put it back on them. Well, what would you do? And if it sounded good, I'd say run with it. And if it sounded kind of iffy, I'd say rethink it. And let's talk again. And so that's how I learned. And so it was, I rented leadership before I got to own it. And so that was the first one. And I think to take your question a little bit more seriously, there was a point in my life from a personal leadership standpoint where I really felt in control. And that was when I decided to apply, enroll, and get into grad school on my own nickel. This was, I had the privilege of having undergrad paid for by my parents, which was wonderful. I didn't do all that well, but when it came to be my turn to actually, uplevel my skill set and really become a more wholly knowledgeable, student of this particular industry and business in general, by the time I got in there, I did nothing but just pour my energy in there, and I owned it. I owned every single bit of it. I was one of 2 people to graduate with a perfect 4.0 GPA, and I'm not that A student. I am just not, but I was really into it. And so I was able to do some public speaking there and really kind of bring out a lot of my best and unique skills that I never saw possible. So that was probably a pivotal moment for me, and that was back in 2000. Since then, I've been working on it, but that was the genesis.
Nice. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned?
Well, biggest lessons. I think the whole concept of awareness, it sounds kind of touchy-feely, and especially in a business setting where everything's buttoned down in right angles, but really having an understanding as to what it is you're here to do, and what gifts you've been given, and determining, really looking inward and figuring out what are those actual talents where things just become effortless, and how do you then bring that into the workplace. So I think it starts there. And so throughout our careers we all have ups and downs, and we all know that markets change and conditions change and things outside ourselves, but having that personal awareness as to how we respond to things really kind of changed my attitude. And when I realized that it was my attitude that actually got results in the external world, I realized the power of that, of what that awareness is. I think the second thing is just from an economy standpoint, on being as productive and as effective as I possibly can. One thing that I picked up along the way was something that I coined as dollarize your decisions and monetize your moments. And it sounds rather trite, but if you think about your earning potential, and if you're a $50,000 a year earner, you earn $25 an hour. That time is worth something. So if you're in a group setting and you have a bunch of people who are, let's say, all averaging 50,000, then each one of them has $25 an hour meters running at the same time. And so if you're talking about a decision on something that is anything less than the cumulative impact of that cost, then you really need to either move on or just be thinking about and re-diverting your focus to something larger. As an example, we were talking about a shipping cost, a fee that shouldn't have been attached to a particular urgent or expedited package that we had to send out as a big report, and they cost us another $18. Well, I'm like, okay, this is three of us talking about an $18 decision here. Well, it may not be right and it may not feel good, but you really need to stop, move on, deal with it, either accept it or just change it, but do something, but don't involve the entire group. And so it's kind of like, but it doesn't feel right. It's okay, and that will be a little bit uncomfortable until you figure out where is that value and how can you pivot quickly and get on with something more important. So
that's yeah. I like that. I had never really thought about that before. I will definitely be thinking about that more. So, what's one of your biggest failures, and how did you learn from that, or course correct?
Well, I failed a lot, and most of those failures didn't feel very good, especially in the moment. But there was one that I can go back to instantly, and that was when I was virtually at the top of my career. I was in charge of running a global real estate portfolio, and so I had real estate, not only the domestic headquarters here in Texas, but also I had real estate in the UK, in South America, in Poland, in Philippines. It was all over the world. It was multicultural, multilingual, multi-time zone. It was multi-everything, and I loved it. Well, one of my jobs there was to hire successors in these various different locations, as well as my own. And after I had the entire successorship set, my client decided to hire my successor instead of me. And so I got the tap on the shoulder that said, "Gip, sorry, you're out." And so when I asked, what's next for me, that was a great, learning ground for me to really learn and train from. And they said they don't have anything for me. And I said, I guess we're going to be talking severance. And they said this was not a severance eligible event. And I'm like, and I had just spent 11 years with this firm, and so I was at an all-time low. So it felt like a curse at the time, and it ended up being my biggest blessing. And I always know that when the pendulum swings one way, it's got to swing back in a positive direction. I just didn't know it at the time.
So what was the blessing?
Well, that failure led to me to go to Canfield's Train the Trainer. I said, I drew the line right then in my career. I said, I will no longer be 100% dependent on traditional employment. Mm-hmm. So I knew I had business ideas. I knew I had another company that I wanted to start. I knew I had the crux of something, but I needed some mentor beyond me and that can give me new, fresh perspective, fresh ideas, and kind of cleanse out this stinking thinking that was going on in my head at the time, because it was the low was pretty low. And so that began the journey, and that was in I got fired in 2011, scrambled to get a job within a couple of weeks, and then went into Canfield in 2012, and then started the company in 2013. So it was a cool natural progression. Yeah.
Yeah, I got chills on that. That's awesome. So I know that you have a certain number of daily disciplines. We've talked about this before. So do you think having daily disciplines is really important for leadership, with people, or either, self-leadership, really? And if so, can you share what what you do that you think is vitally important?
Sure. I just heard, I was at a workshop just the day before yesterday on a success workshop given by a different outfit, and he gave this example of the difference between a groove and a rut. And I think we rely on routines, and routines can be good, but routines can be bad if you don't get enough out of them. And so he said the groove is something that you actually need somebody else to help assist you with, and then you can be in the groove. A rut is something that you can get into all by yourself. And so I'd say very, very interesting perspective just about routines in general. But I say that because I do have a morning routine. I became a morning person when I had a hellaciously long commute, and I just wanted to beat the traffic. And so like this morning, my alarm's set for 4:30, but I was up at 4 just because I had this on my mind, and I also had the daily bread that was coming my way. So, but I've been training myself to get enough sleep and get up at 4:30. I have a morning routine, and it starts with a burst workout, and I can talk to you more about that, which is 15 minutes or less of high intensity stuff to kind of get the oxygen going, get my metabolism going. I do drink a lot of water, as well as a green smoothie in the morning. But I do take time to pray and meditate. I do have this word called affirmate, which is an abbreviation for affirmations, as you well know. But if it's and then I do an appreciate, which is meditate, affirmate, appreciate. Those are my powerful mental 3 that I go that complement my physical burst workout. So that's what gets the juices flowing for me in the morning, and then ideas just come out of my head, and I can't wait to start the day. So it's
wow, that's cool. Yeah. I know. I've always known you to have such enthusiasm. So
it starts at 4 a.m.
Starts at 4 a.m. I'm a morning person, but I've never liked 4. I'm trying to do 5, but 5:30 feels better.
Yeah, my boss said, Gip, now that's not early morning, that's the middle of the night. I'm like, no, all about perspective.
Yeah. So if there's one piece of advice you could give someone who either is a leader or wants to step into a leadership role, what would that be?
I got hooked into personal development. My first taste was back in the 80s when I overheard Earl Nightingale. My boss was playing a videotape of Earl Nightingale for his brokers in the other office, and I wasn't invited in, but I can hear what's going on. I'm like, what is that voice, and who is that guy? And he's actually pretty. I mean, this guy knows his stuff, and so I've been an Earl Nightingale fan. I'll call him my mentor in absentia, because he's long gone now. But he started me on this particular path, and one of his tenets, one of his key philosophies of life that's just as valuable for a leader as it is for anybody, is that we become what we think about. So you've heard it in a million different ways, and what we focus on actually materializes in our reticular activating system, actually engages in all of these things that we now know. But just that simple philosophy of choose your words, choose your thoughts very, very carefully, because it does transform into a reality. And so it's profound. It sounds simplistic on the surface, but you dig down deep, and there's some real could be gut-wrenching. You know what? Haven't been thinking about these positive things in the right way, or I've been rushing and just been busy. And so my thoughts are scattered and not focused. But if we really calm down and start early and become that morning person, the value of knowing that the end game is becoming what you think about, you'll start putting different thoughts in your head, and that would be just a great place to start.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working with you this morning, or conversing with you this morning. And so look for Gip's interview on the Ignite Your Leadership Within Summit, and be sure to check out our book, Ignite Your Leadership, and it's got a lot of great information in it, and you'll see some information on how to find the book and see more interviews at the end of this interview. So thanks again, Gip.
Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate the time.